Welcome, everybody, to RT Talk, the weekly podcast about the company Rooster Teeth. I am Michael Kuhl, and joining me this week is Sir Doug Kirkwood Jr., my longtime host and longtime best friend. If you are finding us for the first time, welcome. If you're returning, then enjoy seeing our shining, lovely faces. This week we talk about Geoff and Trevor's statements that they put out, kind of addressing the allegations that were put out about them. We talk about Jeremy moving back to Massachusetts, and we talk about the new Slow Mo Guys video with Dr. Fauci. Well, only a little bit. We don't really get into a lot of it. Neither of us have seen it yet, but we just talk about that it happened, basically. So, yeah, welcome. This is our very first video podcast. We're trying this out. We also have a new theme song that we debuted. Or, I don't know if debuted. Debut is a really strong word for just playing it for the first time. But we made it. Doug and I made a theme song for the podcast, so we don't have to worry about any type of copyright things or anything like that. So it's ours. We can change it. We can do whatever we want. We don't really talk about the theme song much. I think we just mentioned at the beginning. But Out in the Grapes this week we'll be definitely mentioning it. So, yeah, if you want to send us an email, you can send us one to askrttalk@gmail.com. You can follow us at RT Talk Podcast on Twitter. And if you're listening to this, it's more than likely you'll be hearing this before you'll be able to see it, because just the video part of this takes so much longer than just doing audio. So I am hoping to get it up later on the same day we upload. We always upload videos the podcast on Saturday. So I'm hoping to have this video up just later in the day on Saturday. But with export times and everything else, we'll just have to see. It might be on Sundays, but it'll never be like too far away from the original upload. It's either going to be the same day or the next day. So if you're listening to this, then check back either later today or tomorrow for it. I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the description for the podcast, so that way it'll be easy to find. And if you just want to search for it, it should just be RT Talk Podcast on YouTube. I actually got rid of all of our old videos, which I believe I talked about actually in the episode, but got rid of all the old ones, so it might be a little hard to find initially. But as we upload and do this more often, then the results should come up a lot quicker. So I think that's about it for the intro I wanted to do, and hopefully you enjoy seeing us as opposed to just hearing us. But I guess without further ado, go with the theme song. I would like to welcome everybody to our first video podcast ever, and depending on how this goes, this could be our last. But I think that I think we'll be fine. Everything seems to be working. I figured out how to do this over the internet, and I don't know, like in 2 hours maybe. While I was at work, I was looking stuff up, and then got stuff set up whenever Doug and I started talking. But we are here, so welcome, Mr. Doug, to the first video podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is what we look like. In case you're ever curious, if you can match the voice to the face.
Well, how many people do you think are so disappointed right now? How many people have had a picture in their head of what we look like, and then now upon realizing what it is really let down?
5.
Okay. You know what? I'm not going to challenge that bet. That's like Price is Right level. The only thing I could do is go 4 or 6. That's too spot on.
You want to go higher?
I said 4 or 6.
Well, I'm thinking like 12, maybe 20.
Okay, I'm gonna go 52. There's 52
Half.
people that are upset right now. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking like percentages. I meant 5%.
Oh. I thought you meant a total of 5 people would be upset.
Oh.
Which I believed.
Percentage-wise, 100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone's upset right now. But welcome everybody. These are our faces. Now everyone knows what we look like, not just Phil Walter, who got a first-hand look back in April. I think it wasn't the first time he was on. But yeah, we're trying this out. The plan is to do this going forward, and we have wanted to do this for a long time. We had talked about this for our 1 year anniversary show of doing a video podcast. Doug made a whole like studio. Yeah. He had a whole setup with Texas Longhorn.
Full-size Longhorns, yeah.
Yeah, on there, which I mean it does connect back to the Austin and Texas part of Rooster Teeth. So like it all does kind of tie it together. But we wanted to do this for a long time. COVID happened. I remember when we were planning on doing it the first time, there was all those restrictions and stuff. Obviously, COVID has not stopped happening. And it kind of just came down to why wait any longer? Let's just figure out how to do this in the way that we record. And this is how we record. We do it over our video chat. So now you can see me. And you can see Doug. I don't know what side of the screen I'll put him on, but he's on one of these two sides of me right now as people are seeing this. So we are going to give this a shot, and hopefully nothing crashes or fails, but kind of bear with us as being that this is the first one. We don't know how. We haven't stress tested this enough. So we are here. And we also have a new theme song, which I imagine is going to be a big subject we'll talk about out in the grapes this week. So...
Is that going to be an Out the Grape song too?
No, but we'll talk about making it and everything.
Okay.
I imagine that's probably more of an Out in the Grapes thing because we can talk more in depth about it. And it's going to be weird because I'm trying to address you, the audience who's watching, and I'm looking at Doug on the screen. So he's down here, you're up here. So for anyone listening, if you want to watch this podcast, you can find RT Talk Podcast on YouTube, which is where we'll be posting it. I hope there's not issue finding it. I actually just took down all of our old videos that I had made a while ago, and because all they were was a static image of, I think either the thumbnail or the logo.
So and just the logo.
So I don't even remember at this point. I remember I just saw the thumbnails, but I don't even remember what I did. But it was a static image, and then I just put the audio of the podcast underneath of it. So that's all that they were, and it was like the first 17 episodes. It took me forever to do those 17. It was a headache to do. But I just took those down because I figured this is the fresh start. They had our old theme song in it anyway, which we can't use. So why even put it in there? Or keep them up, rather. So, So this will be the first, video that's going to be on there going forward. And hopefully if this doesn't completely break everything that we have and how we do the show, then you'll be seeing us from now on, even though we've already established that all of you are disappointed. So... but now that that's out of the way, we can actually get into the subject of this episode. And obviously, we've talked about the Ryan Haywood situation the last 2 weeks now. And there is no updates or anything, although one of these is kind of came out during one of the Ryan things, but this is kind of the new big story of the week, which is the fact that Trevor Collins and Geoff Ramsey both addressed sort of allegations or accusations against them. I think maybe we'll just go into Geoff first because Geoff seems a lot more
straightforward,
and it's the Trevor one. There's a little bit of history with us, and how long we've kind of kicked around talking about this whole thing. So I think there's probably more to say with the whole Trevor situation. So we'll go through Geoff's and everything else. I'm not going to read either. Well, reading Trevor's would be this entire episode, but I'm not going to read the statements they put out. I think I was Googling because I was trying to find where the accusations came from before. I have my laptop down here, by the way. I forget people can see us now. Now I realize too, people are going to be seeing all the weird shit that I do while we're recording because I always do this. I always I'm thinking and I'm talking. I'm just doing this weird little twisty motion. But yeah, I was trying to pull it up a little bit ago, and I couldn't find because someone put it in the comments of the post where this person was accusing Geoff of a couple of different things, which we'll get into in a second. But whenever I was looking for that original accusation, I found this post. So if you look up Geoff Ramsey, accusation or allegations, I'm sure you'll find it. But he made a long post on Reddit addressing this, and his post actually ties into something we talked about last week, which was I remember we were talking about what Jack's statement was, or I guess roughly Achievement Hunter's statement, and we talked about bits and pieces of it. And he said how they were Geoff wasn't going to put out a statement, and he had his own stuff going on. And I said that makes me worried. I hope Geoff's not going through something awful or he's doing okay. And he does address that slightly in here. Talking about, the state of the world is weighing heavy on him. He also has some sort of family issue going on, which I don't know if it has to do with the whole Millie thing that we talked about
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's been a while now, but
maybe a month ago.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to do with that or if it's something else, but we're not going to sit here and try to speculate what terrible thing is happening to him. He even said that he's not going to talk about it. So, yeah, so he said that he took a leave of absence from RT, which is why he hasn't been in anything for a while. So he explained a lot of where he's been and kind of sort of the state of Geoff right now. And in this post, he really details, because I feel like Geoff's always very honest and almost brutally honest a lot of times. With about himself and his life. We talked on Achievement Hunter when he went on this speech talking about how he doesn't think Millie even really likes him, and it was this long, really depressing thing to listen to. And he said that even the raw uncut version was 20 minutes long or something like that. It was a really long thing he went on. So I feel like Geoff's always been very brutally honest about stuff, especially when it comes to himself. But this was even a further peek behind the curtain, more so about his personal life beyond just how him and he talked about his divorce with Griffin and everything. So unfortunately I can't find the statement because I know what basically came out about him, or I shouldn't say came out, but what was alleged against him was that someone had made a post about Ryan and their relationship with Ryan. And it was a long post, and 96% of that was about Ryan. And there was one little section in it that was about Geoff. And they mentioned how they were also basically hooking up with Geoff, and Ryan knew that they were with Geoff, and Geoff knew that this person was with Ryan. And that was kind of the big thing, I think, that people were. I don't know, I've seen a lot of people talking about that fact of whether or not Geoff knew,
Right.
which he completely what's the word I'm looking for? Swats that away. He's I had absolutely no idea that anything ever happened with Ryan. I'm fucking devastated. I'm crushed by this whole thing, and oops, didn't mean to click, but he completely went against what that was being alleged against him, basically. And there wasn't the main part, because obviously there's people that have an issue with him hooking up with a fan. Now the point that he makes in this is that this is towards the end of their relationship meaning him and Griffin, when their marriage. One of the last things that they tried was having an open relationship, and I'm kind of summarizing this because, like I said, it's a pretty long post. So I'm honestly going from memory a little bit too, trying to paraphrase and everything. But
I mean, so far you got it.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for supporting me on the first video. People now get to see all of your noises too. But yeah, so pretty much the way he details this is that, this was their one of their last ditch efforts, and he hasn't been dating in ages because he went right from his first wife to being with Griffin. I think even maybe it was right after or something. I honestly can't remember that even.
If I remember right, it was pretty soon after he got his first divorce. It wasn't. I don't think it was during, but it was pretty quick.
It was I think it was a week after, or they got engaged after a week, or it was a really short time frame, either when they met. When they started dating after his marriage, or when they were got married or something.
They got married quickly because she was pregnant.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because Gus was "You're an idiot. You should not be marrying this girl you don't know that well."
And this isn't dark secrets or anything. This was something that was detailed in detail on the old drunk tanks and stuff. So this information was put out there ages ago, but so yeah, it was something like that. But basically, he was saying he hasn't dated in such a long time, going from marriage to marriage. So he was going through doing all the Tinders and the Bumbles and all the other ones that I don't even know about. And he met people and inevitably met people who were Rooster Teeth fans. And he was dating a couple of them, or talking to them, or whatever level it was. And this person was one of them, apparently. And how basically they had a small kind of fling, but then he kind of figured out that he didn't like dating a fan, because just like this, neither of us actually know Geoff Ramsey. However, we know, well, I almost know details about his first divorce and his second marriage. I forget most of them, but it's like we, having never met him or not knowing him at all, know some very personal details about him. So, and I think that is kind of weird. I mean, I think in general, I've kind of wondered that as, someone who's like a public figure, even just not even like in a relationship sense, but just meeting someone new. If they're like a fan of what you do, they already know so much about you and you know nothing about them. And it's like, I feel like that has to be a little...
That's what he says. Yeah, it was weird that they knew everything. And he was like, well, I don't know you at all. And I don't know where do we go from here? What do I talk about?
But I think that would be weird for like a friendship. Like, even if you just were talking to someone like at a bar and you both are having drinks and they, like, oh yeah, I remember whenever you name whatever it is. Like, I remember whenever you shit your pants on that flight or whatever story he's told over the years. And he's like, oh yeah. And you don't even know this person's first name. It's
Right.
like, I imagine in any capacity, that's probably pretty weird thing to deal with. So yeah, I think it's probably just amplified in terms of like a relationship or whatever. But basically he just says that he, this wasn't anything, like this wasn't nefarious, or like this wasn't like he was like sneaking around behind Griffin's back or anything. This was like, I think he even said something about like this was all between like consenting adults and stuff, or like from his perspective.
Yeah, well, he says that towards the end of their marriage that this was their plan, was to have an open relationship, and they would talk to each other about doing this. Like, I'm talking to this person, and they would make sure it was okay.
Yeah, that's what, like, I don't know if I wish I could find that post too, because since it was such a small part, I actually could read what was being like thrown out against him. But I don't remember if that was implied in their like accusation against him. Like,
Was it the Australia girl?
I think so, yeah.
That's what I remember, is the girl from Australia saying that, because he even brings her up in his statement.
Yeah, because I think that's what she said. Like, it was implied, or it seemed like it was a given if he came here that we would hook up or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, basically, it just, from what I could tell from reading this and reading what she said, it seems. I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt Geoff's side of the story. And apparently, because this is one of the things I wanted to verify too, but after he put out his statement, she, like, I don't know if she edited it or if she just made like a note in hers saying that he actually didn't know about Ryan. So I saw people saying that over and over again. So it's like, it leads me to believe that that's actually the case. I wasn't able to look it up to actually see like what she exactly said. But again, I can't even find it because Doug and I were just talking about, like, this happened right after we recorded. Well, not this one specifically, but Trevor's happened the day after we recorded last week's episode, and this one happened a day or two after that. So it's like, these happened almost a week ago now, and it's like, it's hard to even, I'm like trying to dig stuff back up, but I didn't realize it was gonna be this hard, so I didn't
You lost it. It's gone.
Yeah, I didn't like plan out my time accordingly. So
Piece of shit.
yeah. Finally, people get to see you dumping on me now.
What's me looking at my phone trying to make sure all the information's right?
Yeah, you're looking down at your phone. I'm looking down at my laptop as we're reading stuff, and then I'm not even looking at them. I'm looking at you, not everyone here. But I feel like people are used to, especially right now with quarantine. I think people are used to a lot of video chat style, like podcasts and interviews and everything, where you're not looking at the camera, you're looking at your screen. So I hope everyone's fine with that. I hope you're settled in.
Shit on Mike if you're not.
Don't look now. There's a whole comment section where people can. This isn't like Twitter where we don't see any interaction. There's comments attached directly to this. Now I am gonna get canceled. But basically, with like going back to the statement though, from what I gathered is they had this open relationship. He met this person. They had a fling or whatever it was, or it just didn't work out for whatever reason, and then either he moved on from, like, it went to someone else or whatever it was. Like, that seems like that's the extent of it. He says like there was no grooming or anything. I actually didn't see how old she was. I don't remember. But
I don't think it's in there.
I don't think he says. I didn't see in her statement if she did, but I don't know how old she was, but I think she wasn't like 18 years old or something. she was older, like maybe like somewhere in her 20s possibly, or maybe I don't even know. It's such a long statement. I don't know if he actually says in here, and I don't want to like try to scan through this whole thing trying to find it, but yeah, I mean that seems like that's the extent of it. I know people have. There's people who have like a lot of issues with like someone who is known hooking up with someone who's a fan of them, because they see it as like an abuse of power or like manipulating, like an individual basically. I think it's more of an issue when it comes to like what Ryan did and they are younger, and if the person is like 18 years old or something, I think that's a much different story than someone who's like in their late 20s or something. But I still like, it's definitely, there is a power dynamic there where, obviously this person, they sort of almost like demand the respect in a way because they are the known figure and they know that they're like, you're a fan of them. So it's like, it's hard to not address that and that to not be a thing. But I also don't feel like it's in like, I don't think on paper, someone who is known having a relationship or whatever with a fan is just flat out bad. I don't think this like them having a connection or not maybe a connection, but a relationship of some kind. I don't think that just equals a bad thing. I think that's kind of, in some ways, that's how it happens. I mean, people gravitate, like you're gonna find people through the way that they know you. Like, if a quarterback for the Rams, like that's how he's gonna get the most attention is by the fact that people know who he is because he's the quarterback for the Rams. It's just like that just seems like it's almost inevitable that's how you're gonna meet people, is because that's like what you're getting the most attention from already. So it's like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Like unless they're like a lot younger, then it does get into like a weird area. But
right,
that's why I wish I could find how old she was, but
it doesn't say in Jeff's statement.
I was trying to scan through looking for any numbers, but I don't see. I didn't see anything, but in this case, like based on the way it sounds, it seems like it was almost like a one-time, or maybe not a one-time thing, because he said that he at different times he came across people who were fans, but in the case of this individual, anything like this was like a someone that he found, and whatever reason it didn't work out, or maybe it was the fan thing. I don't think it says in there, but I don't see like this doesn't like reek of I don't know, like darkness. Like it doesn't seem like this is like this terrible thing. I think it's something he had to address given everything else that's going on. But yeah, I don't feel like reading what his like account of it. I don't feel uneasy. It's like, oh, okay. It seems like everyone was on the same page. Everyone understood each other. Like I don't see an issue with this one in particular.
Right.
I don't know if that's kind of how you're feeling too.
Yeah. No. I mean, like he says, like him and Griffin had an agreement, and they were open about it, and they were honest. And I mean, the other people they both dated towards the end of their marriage. They knew what was going on as well. And he said, yeah, I tried dating people in the community, but it didn't work because I can't, or he couldn't connect with them really. So I think he said his current girlfriend, I don't know her name, like knew nothing about him, and that's how he liked it.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either. I was trying to while you were talking, I was trying to actually look up. Oh, okay, read that wrong. Okay, I'm not gonna read what I thought I read, but yeah. So his seems like pretty straightforward. I actually going through like the comments and stuff. I have not actually. I don't think I've seen anyone say anything negative or say like this seems fucked up. It seems like everyone's kind of on the same page. That, and I think also being right after Ryan, how terrible that is. I think a lot of people are just kind of looking to rebound, and it's like at this point, I don't even know if I have the energy to try to find a problem in this. It's just kind of like what you said. Sounds like everything was all right, so it's all right with me. Like I don't think people have the energy to really try to dig deep into this and tear this apart word for word and try to find like that little crumb of negativity. It's like I think a lot of people are kind of spent.
Yeah, but no, I think Jeff did it. Whatever was said about him, he's like, no, this is how it was. This is what happened, and okay, we're gonna move on from this.
And he also surrounded it with a lot of personal details that he didn't really have to. Like, talking about their, he gets pretty detailed about, like, the end of their marriage. Like, there's, like, I don't know how many paragraphs here, like, I don't know, maybe 10 or so. And I would say the first, like, 5 or 6 of them are about their marriage and things falling apart and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of details in there, but personally, I don't have any... I didn't like reading through that. I wasn't like, oh no, not another thing, or this is gonna be a problem. I just took it like I said, I had no reason to doubt what he was saying. The only thing I saw as a response from the person who said it, like I said, was that they kind of like redacted or like amended that line about them knowing about each other. So it's like I haven't seen any pushback for it, and it seems like everyone's kind of on the same page.
Yeah, but when you see, hey y'all, it's Geoff, I was like, oh god, what is this?
That's what I said whenever, because Renee showed it to you. I think I was watching her playing a game or something, and she just like put her phone in front of me. She was Geoff put out a statement. And I was like, oh, like about Ryan? I was like, wait, what is this? And then because I didn't know he was accused of anything. I didn't even hear about it.
No,
and
either.
So I started to read through it, and I was going, and the more I started reading, especially when I took a leave of absence, I've had this terrible family issue going on, which I'm not going to talk about. Like, it's been a really hard year. I haven't been in contact. I was like, I just started getting more and more worried that this was going to end with. So because of all this, I'm leaving Rooster Teeth, and I was going to be like, God, and just be heartbroken.
I would have retired
from the podcast.
I'd be done.
You would take the headphones off and hang them on your microphone. Yeah, that's how I was worried it was going to end. So like when I got to the end and it didn't say that, I was like, oh, okay. I was about to be really upset, but yeah, I don't. Unless more information comes out, I think this one's pretty settled. I think most people are on board for, Geoff's side of it, and unless there's just a ton of the moderators are doing a ton of work to remove negative comments. I have not seen anything on here or other. I'm sure if I Googled some shit about Geoff, I'd find negative shit, but just in general, it didn't seem like a lot of people were going after him, which also has been the case for Trevor as well. So we can kind of smoothly. I don't know why I did it off camera. It went like this. Or no,
right into it.
And I almost ripped my headphone cable out because it was caught on my arm.
Almost ripped your shirt and your headphone cable.
Just blows off me as I go like that. Which I'm like half doing like a Nazi salute, so I should really stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good thing I did it off camera mostly. But this will just transition right into talking about Trevor. So this one's a little different, for us, or maybe more specifically for me, but for the show, because the allegations against Trevor are something that I learned about and I told you about, and Renee and I have talked about back in, I think it was like February, I want to say.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Ignore that. There was a car going by. Just shitty exhaust was just exploding the whole way down the road.
I thought Renee was knocking on the door.
That's what it sounded like. That's why I just waited, because it was just puttering the whole. It's still doing it actually. That's what. Now that people can see, outside of that window right there is a road. It's right there, and that's why if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, when you hear cars go by, that's why, because they're right there, and our house is as big as like the room I'm in almost, so I can't escape that road. So I apologize, but I kind of have to deal with it. People can also see the camera collection we referenced like 8 times, and
there it is.
That's part of it. I don't think you can see the whole thing on the camera, but you can
this
see
is Mike just bragging.
It is, yeah. With my empty envelope back here, of which I don't even know what this is for, and my name tags from previous jobs that just are hanging on our zebra lamp. But yeah, the Trevor stuff. I think it was back in February whenever I first learned about it, because it was like some comment, and I had to go back to even see like what episode we covered at that time, because something happened like in the Rooster Teeth world, and someone said like, well, just wait till they find out about the Trevor stuff, and I was like, what's that about? And I went and I looked, like I was trying to figure out what they were talking about, and I looked it up, and I found like the things that he was being accused of, basically, which apparently were talked about, like put on the subreddit back like in December, I want to say, and somehow I don't know how, I never saw them. Like, I go in the subreddit multiple times a week to see, like, you know, if there's anything I missed, and somehow that just slipped through, and I don't know how I didn't see it, but I after I read through and stuff to hear the accusations against him, which you're not aware, the accusations against him were from an ex-girlfriend who... Yeah, that's... Well, he says her name, but...
Yeah.
He refers to her as E in the thing, but his ex-girlfriend basically accuses him of being emotionally and... I don't remember if she was physically abusive, I don't remember, but essentially being a very abusive boyfriend and kind of being a real shithead. But the reason I can't really, like, I can't get into, or I should say I can't get into, but I can't look up those the posts that she had because her Twitter has now been made private, so I can't even find, like, some of the stuff that she originally said.
When that happened? That happened before?
It happened after he put out his statement.
Oh.
But because she actually said, she put a response out, and it was like, I don't know, it was like three tweet threads long of, like, different, like, things kind of addressing his giant statement. But basically the timeline for us was, learned about it around, like I said, around February, and I looked into it, and all I could find was, I think it was a Reddit post about, like, her tweets and, like, what was put out against him, saying that he was, I think it was physically abusive too, but I can't remember, but I definitely am emotionally abusive.
Emotionally is the only one I remember. I don't remember it being physical, but we could be wrong.
Let's just add to it. Let's make the rumor even bigger.
Definitely spread, false information.
Yeah. It's, apparently she said that Trevor's a serial killer, and he's killed many, all throughout the southern United States and parts of Mexico. But I mean, I guess we could just focus on the emotional abuse. Is that she detailed, like, a lot of stuff as, like, never super specific, but she said, like, some stuff that happened, and was basically, like, trying to expose him for not being, like, this perfect person. Now, I think we should talk a little bit about why we never talked about it and kind of that decision. Your decision. Okay.
It was Mike's decision.
I like how immediately you just pushed me right under the bus. You just separated yourself in the first sentence. Well,
we didn't have anything to go off of until this was released.
Well, and that was the big thing. I actually had it on my list to talk about while we were recording at some point in there. And as I was like, all right, I don't know if I have anything else, because I was planning on talking about it until we started recording. And once we started recording, it just, for some reason, it didn't feel right to bring up, because I was like, this feels like we're kind of becoming like TMZ a little bit. Like, here's this rumor that's out there. So now, like, every time there is, like, dirt or something, you know, scandalous happening, that we're going to immediately bring it up and go through and just say, wow, there's nothing to back up this claim. This person said that. And then, like, all we're going to be doing is amplifying something that could be completely false. And right. I was like, up until, like, I looked at it in my list while we were recording, I was planning on talking about it. And whenever I went to go say it, I was like, yeah, I think that's it. And I just first, like, in that moment, I was like, it doesn't feel, like, I just didn't feel comfortable throwing it out there. Like, it's one thing if it's about, like, a new show and we don't have any details about it and we can, like, speculate and, like, oh, because that's just fun, that's fandom, that's what it is. But when it comes down to something that is, like, essentially, like, affects someone's character, like, I don't know if I want to be a part of boosting that when we don't really have much to go on. Like, the Ryan thing is a different story, because I talked for like 2 hours about how upset I was about that, because that was so jarring. But there was actually things to point to and evidence that said this is happening, like the screenshots and the text conversations, the pictures of him. Like, there was plenty that detailed what their whole thing was. So her claims, and I guess the main part that it never sat well with me, and Renee read through it and she kind of came to the same conclusion, which was, it just didn't seem, something was odd about it, because her tweets at the time is that she put out this whole thing saying, I don't remember any specific examples of what he did, but, like, it came up a little bit in Trevor's statement, like how she couldn't hang out with his friends, how controlling he was, stuff like that, how he, like, I think he picked his career over her. I don't remember if she said it in in her statement or if like friends of hers were saying that he cheated on her. I can't remember. It all kind of blends together now because it's from almost a year ago at this point.
I never read her stuff, so I only know Trevor's side.
Well, it was stuff like that, is that he couldn't hang out with... I remember that was a big... I remember it specifically because he mentioned the not being able to hang out with his friends. And, like, basically he was super
couldn't hang out with
controlling.
his friends without her.
Well, no, it was... In her claim, it was that he was controlling who she could be friends with, basically. And said, like, you can't hang out with this person, you can't hang out with that person. And it was a lot of control, a lot of stuff like that. But the part that struck me as odd is not that part of it. The part that struck me odd, or struck me, I guess, I don't know. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Struck me odd. Doesn't sound like a correct phrase.
As odd.
That's better. Thank you, Doug. Here is my squiggly red line. That's what you are. But what struck me as odd was...
Nailed it.
Thank you. Is that she posted this thing, like, detailing what happened, and then would delete it and then say, like, guys, I'm just trying to move on from this. This was like 2 years ago, which was like, okay, it seems like an odd, like, position to take after you brought it up. But then, and then it's like, you know, you could make the argument, well, then maybe it was just like she faced a lot of backlash or whatever, which I don't know what her, like, normal tweets were getting or anything. It wasn't like there was, like, thousands of people, but, you know, 40 people telling you you're terrible is a lot of people.
Yeah, especially when you're a normal person.
Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know, like, how much backlash she was facing. So you could say that she put it out there, and then after that, it was from all the pushback, she was like, I just want to move on from this. This wasn't worth it or whatever. But then she was still bringing him up, like, passive aggressively. Like, I remember there was a tweet where she said something like, it's great having to see my ex on my timeline all the time for, like, what he does.
But that was, like, because she followed people that worked at Rooster Teeth still.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, of course.
Yeah, so, like, there was a lot of, like, conflicting messages there. Like, to me, it's like, if you're gonna go through and accuse something of something, I feel like the internet's been around for a long time. You kind of have to expect, if you're going to put out something as impactful as that you're going to face pushback. Now, obviously, if it's something attached to something as traumatic as abuse, it's like, it's not as easy as it maybe, or easier said than done, I guess. It's like, you can say that, but of course, once you're actually in it and you're getting, it's like, okay, it's not worth it. But the message whenever she said, you know, I'm just trying to move on, seemed more like she was bothered by the people who are, like, still talking about it. She's like, guys, it's not a big, like, I just want to move on from this. Like, people keep bringing it up to her, and she doesn't want to talk about it anymore. It's like, but a week ago, you put out this mega thing saying, you know, this is everything he's doing. So it's like, you started, like, you brought up that topic. You started the fire, and now you're saying it's too hot. It's like, okay.
Do this to yourself.
So, now, all that's to say that that didn't make me... It didn't make me just think that, oh, she's lying, this is all made up. But it was enough to make me go, I don't know that we should talk about this because this just seems strange. And another thing that she talked about a lot was her kind of battle with, like, I don't know if it's various or what, but she's battling some form or forms of mental illness. I don't know if it's depression, if it's anxiety, if it's all of it. But she's going through, you know, kind of fighting with that, you know, those demons. And so it's like, who knows, maybe, like, what she's going through, who knows, like, there's so many other, like, variables that could come along with that. So it's like, I don't know, it's like, I don't want to, like, I don't want to, if what she's saying is completely false, I don't want to amplify this message and then spread misinformation potentially. And it's also like, if this is just going to cause her more backlash, again, we're going to be amplifying it. Not that we have, like, this enormous audience that, like, a ton, but still, even if, you know, the way the internet works is that it doesn't matter how many people listen then, if we do eventually get to the point where we do have a really big audience, those episodes will be listened to at some point. So it's like, all it will do is encourage people to go after her. And it's like, I don't know, it just felt like a really messy situation that until we kind of had more to go on, it just felt like I didn't really want to, like, it just seemed weird to bring it up. And it's like, because there's not much to say. It was like, he's accused of this, and we'll see.
It would have been literally like 7 months later, like, oh, we have information now.
Yeah, so it's just like, I guess just say what you will about my decision. I'll cut Doug out of it. my decision to not talk about it, but I didn't feel comfortable with it, and it just seemed like it was a better thing to leave kind of off to the side until we had more to go on. Honestly, a lot like the Joel situation, which we eventually did do. Just basically, it was like, okay, let's just finally get through this and just actually address what this is, because things kept like popping up. But with Joel Heyman, which again with this podcast, of course, the week after we put that episode out, like, is he still there? It was confirmed he's not there, which fucking every time. But
yeah,
but that was like a topic that I had on my list for months and months and months about whether or not Joel still worked there. And it was just one of those things, like, we just don't have enough to really definitively say yes or no. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. That was less serious. So I didn't have as much, I didn't feel like there was as much damage that could be done by talking about it, as opposed to this, where, like I said, this is actually going after someone's character and how you know them and everything. And like I said, it obviously is going to it'll push back to her. So it's like, I just kind of put the lid on it. It was like, okay, and I took it off my list. And like, if there's anything else that comes up about it, then we'll talk about it. But the only thing that ever came up between when I found it then and now is a couple people that were just sort of, I guess, like, supporting her claim, but not like this also happened to me support. Like, I read her thing and I believe her kind of support. Like, they didn't have a firsthand experience with it. They just believed what she said, and they kept bringing it up and kept pushing the issue. And that's the only thing I've seen until he put out his statement. But, like, I did say when Renee and I were watching the statement about our Achievement Hunter statement on the live stream, and they said, like, this is all we're going to say. It won't be on off topic. They were going through that whole thing. At one point, Jack says, I forget what the actual email is. I think it's like conduct@roosterteeth.com or something. But he said, like, he gives out the email saying, like, if you ever notice anything happening, you ever see anything, like, if there's anything at all that makes you uncomfortable, whatever, email that thing, and, that's it. And when we saw that, I go, I wonder if that's, like, something's going to happen with Trevor, because I was, like, thinking if this is, like, a legitimate issue, this, like, it could potentially be brought up through there, like, in this whole investigation could happen if someone, say, like, her or, like, one of her friends or something did submit an issue or, like, bring up this, like, abuse thing. And then 4 days later, he puts out a 10-page statement.
Right. So, yeah.
That
obviously it was brought up.
Well, I was gonna say that wasn't my predict. I thought something. I was wondering if it was gonna lead to problems, and actually maybe we would see, like, evidence, or, like, it would out him or something like that. Like, I wonder what this is gonna mean for him, if that's, like, the way. Because people have been, like I said, I've seen people bring it up on the subreddit. I've seen bring it up on Twitter and everything else. So it's like, it was out there. People were talking about it. It wasn't, it didn't just die. So it's like, I thought for sure someone would be emailing that conduct and said, maybe that's why he put out a statement, is that people did email about it. But I was, like, more thinking, like, oh, we might actually, like, find out something here. And, like, maybe on her end. I really didn't think I was going to see, like, a 10-page statement for him. It was almost a complete, I thought something would come on from her. And, like, oh, Trevor's, I don't know. I didn't, like, predict that he was going to be let go or anything, but I was just like, I didn't know what that meant for her story and for him and everything else. But getting to his actual statement, like I said, I think it's actually 10, someone said 10 pages long. I don't know if it's actually that long.
That's what
it
it
is.
said, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is.
But it's a Google Doc, and you really can't tell it's 10 pages. But if you go to his Twitter, that's where you can find this.
Yeah. Yeah, he posted it, and he's only tweeted like 3 or 4. Well, as of when we're recording, he's only tweeted like 3 or 4 times. But I'm sure if you're listening to this in like 6 months, because that's one thing too, which we should say, hello and thank you to all the new people that are here, because
or watching.
Yeah, and watching. We talked about on the episode where we talked about everything with Ryan, about how this podcast is kind of a bummer because the best episodes are come from when the worst things happen, and, like, not necessarily best in terms of, like, our quality, like, we finally have this blessing from the gods and this is gonna be our greatest episode, but in terms of the like, popularity and how well they do in terms of numbers. So that episode, our Ryan Haywood episode, the first one, became our most popular episode within the first week of it being out. So
not surprising.
Not surprising. I mean, it surprised me a little bit because we've had other big stories that not necessarily to this, not the level of Ryan, but just we've had other big stories that have not skyrocketed the way that one did. That one really shot through the ceiling. And it's like our most downloaded by like almost like almost double, I think. So it's like it really went through, became popular. But why I brought it up right now is that what also happened is people found that, and there's older episodes that are getting downloaded too, because I saw the one where we talked about, I think you remember, we talked about Jeremy and the possibility of him leaving because he tweeted about
right, just his mental health.
Yeah, and he said like he's thinking about taking a step back. I was looking at the graph for that, and it was like when it first came out, it has like the big spike of downloads, and it kind of like sits down, and then like last week it was like went right back up. Like it was like almost as equal to when it first came out. And I was like, so like a bunch of people listen to that one. So it's this. I want to start like keeping in mind that people might not hear this for like, maybe 6 months to a year, or who knows. But I'm sure if you looked up this statement, it wouldn't be hard to find. Like it's on his Twitter, but yeah, it is 10 pages long. The difference with Trevor's statement or response, that like the difference between what he said and what she has said, is that he provided a lot of proof.
Screenshots, stories.
Yeah, and specifics. I mean, that's my big thing with when anyone makes an accusation. It's like there's a lot of times where people say something but don't really say anything. And they'll say like, if I just said, which I mean, I feel like I've detailed enough stories on this podcast, but if I just said like, you're like really abusive to me as a friend, and you were like, you're a toxic person. That's a popular term that people throw around, is toxic. So if I just said you were toxic and I left it at that, that doesn't really explain anything. All I know is that clearly there's an issue between us, and I don't know what it actually is. Now, if I said you're toxic and I go, okay, so back in, July, Doug came down for like this part. Like if I go through a whole story, give details and everything, it doesn't necessarily make it true, but at least it gives you something to go off of, and it adds something to it. It wasn't just a general, this is what happened in, these vague titles or whatever of abuse or whatever. So he puts out a whole timeline of like when they first started talking, when they started dating, screenshots that like support something, like to show like what he's talking about. He talks like, I'm just kind of scrolling through generally because I'm not going to read 10 pages, but
right.
Or again, I did read the whole thing when it first came out, but I'm not going to read it right now.
That's a given.
Yeah. But he puts out a timeline of like when things happened. He showed a screenshot of his tweet when he got his new house and everything. Talks about like kind of how their relationship progressed, and what sort of like timestamps events in their relationship. So he said like this one, it just says like March to November from 2017, December 6th, 2017, December 9th, December 13th, December 16th. Like he goes through and meticulously plots out what
was talked about, what happened.
Yeah, at least in like, he's obviously he's going from memory and like what he can gather from screenshots, but he just said like he just gives like a quick summary of like what happened. Like a big one seems to be the Christmas party, the Rooster Teeth Christmas party, where him and Barbara were talking, and that like set her off, and it was like a whole thing. Again, we don't know the full details of what happened at the party, but at least like I said, there's something there that we can go after and can be refuted or looked up, or people can kind of back up or whatever. So he goes through, details every single one of these like events, like according from his perspective and everything. Shows a screenshot after when he texted Wes saying that like that sucked because they talked about having to break up, or him having to break up with her and everything, and like their conversation. Then talks about like the timeline of after that relationship ended to when him and Barbara actually started dating and how that progressed. He goes through, talks about their relationship, then talks about how he went to her house because apparently she had a big issue with Barbara and felt disrespected by her.
You're talking about E, just for the listeners to follow.
What do you mean?
You're talking about him going to E's house to talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what he... Because, like, after he goes through, like, the steps of how him and Barbara, like, became a couple and, like, how they decided to, like, announce it publicly or like, when they were going to... he went over to E's house, and wanted to tell her, I guess, like face to face and say like this is what's happening, because she had like an issue with Barbara. I guess from what I can gather from the screenshots is that she felt very disrespected by Barbara, but I didn't see any kind of.
She said she felt disrespected and that Barbara was like laughing too much or too flirty with Trevor.
I think maybe that must be what it was, that she felt like she was flirting with him when she knew that he was taken, so that she took that as a sign of disrespect to her, I guess. As I don't know if that's, I don't know. I feel like we can connect the dots a little bit there, but so Trevor went over to let her know, that him and Barbara were together, and talked about like how it ended like in this huge fight and everything, and then he shares just an insane amount of screenshots. Is like 100 screenshots from the conversation that happened after that. Those screenshots, they do they invoke like I get like angry reading them.
I couldn't even read them.
Like I have a hard time. I'm trying to like separate, because it's like she did just find out that her ex is with the person that she hated the most, but I don't know. Like I feel like there's a line that you can't, like, because she was ruthlessly attacking everybody. It was, his coworkers, friends, him, and everything else. And it's like I understand you're angry and you're really upset. And it's one thing, I guess they're already broken up, but to me,
when he did that, they were broken up for a while, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact time frame was. Oops, I don't know why I grabbed my mouse. It was somewhere is December. Yeah, I think it looks like around like mid-December is when is around when they broke up, and it was shortly after that like maybe like a month or two after that him and Barbara started like actually hanging out and dating and stuff. So
in February. So
yeah,
they broke up in December. Then by February, he was dating Barbara.
So, so then he, and of course this is all according to his timeline, but it's like, so then he went over and told her, but, so of course, like, they're not a couple anymore. So like, I don't know, I guess it just kind of depends if you're willing to burn a bridge. But to me, I feel like I don't care how mad, like if you and I were really mad at each other, which is, I don't think has ever happened. I think you and I have, I've only ever heard you yell like twice in our entire friendship since fourth grade. I think I've heard you yell twice. And once was directed at me / us at the lunch table in like 8th grade. So it's like, it basically doesn't even count. We're children.
Right.
But like, say if you were really upset with me, and then what you did was, while we were like fighting, is all you did was say really terrible things about me, about, Renee, about like our other friends. I'm done there. Like that's where I cut off. It's like, I have a real problem with people thinking that when they're angry, they can just say what they want. And I don't think that's the case. Like I said, if you're willing to burn that bridge and you like, if that's where you're at, then that's where you're at and you don't care. But, and as I said, I know she just found out that he was with the person. So like, that's like, I kind of like teeter here. Like I get where she's coming from, but I feel like that's a line you can't cross. I'm not saying she shouldn't be forgiven or anything, but I'm just saying like, that's one of the things that's between Renee and I, is that we kind of have, it's like I don't know, it's almost like an unwritten rule in a way. Like all the times when, like if her and I do get into a fight about something, it's never been like name calling. It's never been just outright anger where we're just screaming at each. It's just like, we're mad about a subject. Let's stay on track and let's talk about this thing, and not just start lashing out at everything around us, and then try to just go, let's not just try to hurt each other's feelings, because that's not productive. That's not anything. So it's like, I have like a real, I have like a reaction to reading those where it's like, I could not do that. I would have, like, if I were him, I would have bailed out of that conversation way before. Like, I would just be like,
I don't think you could.
Oh, it would have been over. I'd been like, all right, I'm not doing this. Like, we can talk about this, but I'm not going to sit here and just like, we're not getting anywhere, and all you're doing is trying to hurt me. And it's like, I understand that you're hurt, but we'll talk about this later. I can't do this, because it's just like, I just don't like that type of arguing. Now, a thing to keep in mind, like in her response to all this, she says like this, she was like this relationship was like from 18 to 21. So a lot of growth happens in those years. So I'm not like,
A lot.
I'm not like, I don't want to make, because I know I'm saying a lot of like, I really didn't like that message, but at the same time, I'm not really like holding it against her, because when you are like, I don't know how old she is now. This was just a couple years ago. So, you know, she's probably only like 24 maybe. I don't know how old she is, but still, you make a lot of mistakes. You have a lot of like, you do a lot of growing up, a lot of maturing in those ages. So I don't necessarily think this should condemn her and like make her labeled as a shit person for the rest of her life or anything like that. I just, in that instance, those screenshots really hit like a nerve with me, where I was like, I could not do that, because I just personally believe that if you have an argument, if you really are upset with somebody, you need to, like, you can be emotional, you can be angry and everything, but it shouldn't just result to name calling, because then there is no point. It is just, you might as well just be throwing punches, honestly, because it's like, that's all you're trying to do is hurt the other person. It's like, we're not,
right.
What's the point? So,
There's no point.
Yeah. So that was kind of her, like, that was like the biggest piece in his statement that really showed, basically the imbalance, or some of, I guess, like probably like the biggest thing that kind of refutes her side of it, where she was saying, you know, how abusive he was, controlling he was, where in that entire conversation he was completely like, I'm just trying to do what I feel is right. And then she was like, how honorable of you. And he's like, I'm not trying to be honorable. I'm just trying to say, like, I just felt like I should do this. And it was like, it really went against like the picture that was painted in the original Accusations a while ago.
Right, because her thing was, he, like, in his statement, he says like she was kind of like, after they broke up, she was like, well, if you want to be my friend, why we even why we even trying to talk about it or whatever. So he's like, all right, well, so, like, they hung out like a couple of times maybe, and then I think his thing was like, well, she wants to be friends, and this is what the right thing to do is. Let me tell her what's going on.
Which, yeah, I mean, no matter how you feel about, like, if you still think that wasn't enough time and this is a whole fucked up situation, there still has to be something said about the fact that he went over to meet with her, to tell her this to her face, so that she didn't just find out through Twitter and whatever. Like, there's something about that action alone that says something about him, where, like, I don't know, I don't think you would ever do that. I don't think I would do that. I don't know that I would be able to, like, to go over to face someone just to say, hey, I'm dating this person now.
I mean, it depends on the person, but usually not. I mean, all my ex-girlfriends, like, we're friends now, but there was like a year or two I didn't want to talk to them. They didn't want to talk to me.
Well, especially when you hear, like, at least according to him, like, how their relationship ended. It did seem to end on pretty rocky ground, and it wasn't, like, I think if I remember right, he tried to break up with her once before, but it didn't. They talked it out, and, like, they came to an agreement, and then he kind of like, he was putting, like, distance between them, where he was, like, trying to separate himself from her in some ways. And
well, he said he got, like, I forget what surgery he said he got. He's supposed to take like a week or two off, but he went right back to work just to be away.
Yeah, I forget what that was.
It was like appendicitis, but I could.
Oh yeah, I think that's what it was. Something with his appendix or something like that. But yeah, so, like, he was, like, after that he was, like, trying to, like, basically put space in between, because that's what he felt like not just, like, I mean, this is a technique I know you're familiar with, talking about 7th grade, 8th grade Doug, not just trying to be like a dickhead so that she breaks up with him.
Everybody's done that.
Yeah, which is a young Doug technique, which I bring up now because it's funny, because, like I said, this is like 8th grade, so yeah. This was not an adult that did this thing. It was child Doug, but it was always a really funny thing that we've joked about over the years. But I completely lost my train of thought. Was I just someone for him? Oh, he was trying to create the distance between them, because he felt like what he says in here is that he felt like they needed to be apart, because they just were, like, spending so much time, and, like, there was so much, like, friction and so much, like, butting heads that was going on, that that he felt like they just need to be apart less. And it was another thing that he talks about. And
be apart less or be apart more?
Wait, what was I trying to say? Be apart more.
Be apart more. Yeah.
Yeah. I used the wrong word, but I don't know what word I was trying to use.
I assume more, but
No,
you said less.
Apart is the word. I was trying to say. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just spent whatever I messed up. I messed it. I said it wrong, so it doesn't. Regardless, if this was a test, it would have a red line through it. It's regardless of what it was supposed to be. So yeah, they were. He thought they needed to be apart more. So, they basically to grow and to kind of work on the issues that they have, and that was what leads into her saying that she couldn't hang out with his friends. Is what he was saying. Like from what his like rebuttal to that was basically, it wasn't that you couldn't hang out with my friends, it was that I wanted someone, or like what he was really looking for, and I don't even know if he realized at the time or if this was something he realized afterward, but what he really wanted was someone who kind of had their own stuff going on. And it wasn't that she couldn't be friends with his friends, it was that she would go, like every time he'd go to do something with his friends, that she would also go. And like he wanted to have something like where she would go hang out with her friends, or like if she went to go hang out with his friend, or whatever it was, whatever the combination was. But he wanted her to have like her own thing going on that didn't just involve him every single time.
Right, but he even says like when he'd go try to hang out with his friends solo, she'd be cool with it until he went to leave. Then she would.
It would cause a fight. And you know, I think I said it like a couple times, but just it's important to keep in mind, like this is all just this is his perspective. So I'm kind of just saying it as if it's fact, but I'm kind of trying to paraphrase this 10-page thing down. So like everything that we're saying is this just his point of view, but still that seemed like it was a big part of it. So like again, those big screenshots came out, or not came out, but they were like he put them out like in the center of this giant release here, and that's kind of like the big, I would say like the bombshell for this whole thing. Most of this in here is talking about some other stuff that she did. Like he talks about things that didn't really fit into like what he was saying, like her trying to push him to leave RT because he had an opportunity to go to the LA for a job, and she didn't, like she, according to him, didn't want to do that or talk about how terrible LA was.
I thought her whole thing was she just didn't like Rooster Teeth, or try to convince him everyone at Rooster Teeth hated him and he should he should go work better places that she approved of.
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, that was in there, but it was also, I mean, in her, what she, like I said, her Twitter account is private, but I think she said in her statement, like in a response to this, something about she didn't want him, she wasn't trying to convince him to leave Rooster Teeth. It was that he always was coming home so miserable that she was like, well, why don't you go here? Or why don't you go there? Like she was trying to, that was like her response to what he said in that instance. Now, I don't know if it was, maybe he was so miserable because the way he paints it seemed like he was pretty unhappy during this whole thing. Basically, yeah, it's like, there's a bunch more in here, and you can find, well, at the end he does talk about, because one thing he says is like her inconsistencies with what she was saying and how this started as just one claim, and then over the years, it's like our time, it's been escalating to like now it's abuse as opposed to like what it started as. And then he does talk about, which I did see, like some of the stuff that he puts up, I actually saw, because he does say that he talked about like how she would drive by his house a while after, like when him and Barbara were together, she would just like go and like slowly drive by, which I was
but she admitted she did that.
Yeah. And then, but the one thing I did see was there was someone that is friends with her that has like a Tumblr page. I don't even know if it's, I don't know if it's still up or if it maybe got taken down since this whole thing came out, but I saw this back when, I saw this back whenever I was originally looking at like into the details. And this is a friend of hers, and this person like posts pictures of her, like Snapchat photos of her, saying like, we are friends, this was us out. And then she said like how she knows like where people live and stuff like that because she was just like divulging this information to a bunch of people, and like kind of proved that she knows where his house is based on like a picture of him and then the listing for the house and seeing like the exact space that he's in. And she basically goes through and just says like, just know that like, there's two sides to the story. And so like basically take her claim with a grain of salt, because, and this is a friend of hers that said this, and it was basically trying to be like more reasonable and fair about it than just taking one side. And then he just kind of showed like there's a couple other people that he links to for that put out like made points about the whole thing. So basically yeah, I just keep scrolling because there's another like screenshot, another thing here, but
yeah, there's just more and more.
And well, one thing he shows too is how she said like it's insane how no matter how hard I try to keep my ex off my timeline for my own mental health, I still manage to see him and stuff like that. And then she says, don't ask me about my ex or the abuse I suffered for 3+ years or anything whatsoever to do with any of it. I'm just tired and trying to heal from it all for 2 years. I've tried speaking out. No one cares what happened to me. I just want to try and heal from it all. And then what he points out is how she was following people like Fiona, who she never interacted with, and stuff like that. It's like, well, you kind of what's what you said. It's like, of course you're going to if you're still following these people,
right?
And yeah, there was a lot of, like I said, like there was things that she said in those screenshots, which like you can go look through yourself, where I think she even points out like what happened to Gavin and Meg in that terrible story where someone broke into their house. And kind of like almost like makes fun of it in a way, and it's like
I didn't see that.
I don't. Maybe it wasn't in those screenshots. Maybe it was a part of something else. I know she says something about Meg in those screenshots because she talks about how Trevor just wants to be with like a pretty blonde and stuff like that, and now he's exactly like Gavin, where he's just with like this attractive girl who's gonna basically use him and spit him out in like a year or something like that. She brought up Gavin and Meg. No, here's what he said. She liked and verbally supported tweets threatening me with physical harm. In a world after what Gavin and Meg went through, there's no longer room for this to be considered a joke. So basically it's it was just her support. Wasn't that she supported or like was making fun of it. It was that she was supporting the physical harm when I don't know if they would have been together for that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly when that Megan Gavin thing happened, but I don't know. After all this stuff came out, his whole statement, I'm gonna have to go from memory here, but basically what I saw from her like response to it was that she said that she knows that she acted in a really shitty way at that time. And that she has been trying to work really hard to be, like basically be a better person. And she said that she was really angry and just started like lashing out and stuff. So basically it's like she acknowledged that she was pretty shitty in that moment. And, like, I don't know if she apologized for it or whatever, but she basically just said like, I don't like seeing it either, kind of. But then she still was going on to say that like, he's still not giving you the full story. He's not telling you everything that happened. And then she just said like she doesn't really want to get into it and go for point by point, but just know that that's not what he's saying is still not true. And it's kind of like, I don't know, you've had a lot of chances to give like to be specific about things, and that hasn't happened. So it's just like right now I'm more inclined to believe Trevor's side of this than hers, just because she's had a ton of time to try to get in. She said like she doesn't have any of the old like screenshots or anything that she can try to use to support her thing, which is like, okay, people go through phones like every 2 years now, so it's not unbelievable that she wouldn't have an old phone or whatever to get screenshots from, or people have their phones set up to delete old text messages. So it's like I don't like, that's plausible. I don't like put any weight into that, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. There just hasn't been anything from her side that's even been specific about what's necessarily happened, other than like I couldn't hang out with my friends, but didn't really like detail an event where it happened or anything like that. At least that I saw. I think by the time I even found out about the story, she had deleted her original post about her like string of tweets of what had happened with like what he said. So like I had to find it through like an archive photo or something. So it's like it's a hard thing to do, but I'm trying to remember what else. I'm trying to go. So I have to remember it now. I'm trying to, because like I said, it was like 3 threads that she put up responding to it. I mentioned the him wanting to, or not trying to talk about it, working at Rooster Teeth. It was about him being unhappy. But I think that was basically it. It was more so. It was basically mostly like, I know that I was a pretty fucked up thing to say all that stuff. I'm trying to change or trying to be better, but he's also not telling you the whole story. It was like kind of the gist of the at least one of the statements.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like she'll always have that opinion. I mean, whether we know what's the full story or not, she's always going to say it's not all this is true or not. It's not all out there.
Yeah, and probably from her perspective, even it's very possible that if a third party was there and witnessed these things and said no, like, and detailed exactly what had happened, she might still say that it was like she took it that way. Like, that's the hardest thing about like all these, because that's what, like, reading his whole statement and then her response, all I kind of felt like was like, I'm pretty glad we didn't cover it back when we did, because now it just feels like a pretty classic end of a relationship that didn't go well. It's she's saying one thing, he's saying another thing. They're just like, they're not really bickering with each other here, but they're just fighting about like, no, you did this. Like, I didn't do that. All I was trying to do was that. And it's just like, now it's kind of like, I feel like I'm just putting my hands up. I'm like, okay, this is something that is like, you guys are just arguing now, and I don't know what, like, I can't make heads or tails of this. So it's like, to me, it just seems like a bad relationship went bad. He acknowledged in his post, or in his screenshots, I should say, in his text about how he wasn't like perfect. He knows that he wasn't always like the best and stuff like that. He didn't feel like they were good for each other. Like, he acknowledges that he has some fault in like how things. It just seems like this was a relationship that went poorly. That, you know, they weren't meant for each other. He was, you know, dealing with his stuff. She was dealing with her stuff, and they just weren't compatible, and it just caused fighting. And then they broke up, and it just kind of was still swirling around, and then it became public and became this thing that, you know, people were like taking her claim and then running with it and saying, you know, it's pretty fucked up. Trevor did this stuff, and, you know, still, I mean, he provides proof, but still, it's like, it's more so just how the relationship ended, I would say, is where the like most of his proof is. So it's, you know, for like these exact examples, it's, you know, it's still just he said, she said at this point. So I don't know. It's a bad relationship that went badly, and everyone kind of has their own perspective on what happened. Everyone kind of has their own opinion on an event and what it actually meant and how it was taken and everything else. Because I think that's the hardest thing about trying to decipher something like this, is that two people can tell the exact same story but get different results out of it. So I can come home and Renee can ask me a question, and I can say, like, she can like say, how was work? And I'll be like, fine. And then she could take that as that I don't want to talk to her or something. You know, I'm just making up a hypothetical. She could take it that way because I didn't really answer her, and I could just be like, no, I was thinking about something else. But in that moment, she feels like disregarded in that moment, but I'm not. Like, I'm in a completely different area. However, the facts of what happened are very minimal. So it's like, as simple as these situations can be, they can both be right. They can both be telling the same story. They can be factually correct, but they both got different, like, they have different opinions or different experiences out of that event. So it's like, now more than ever, I just feel like, yeah, this is like their own personal relationship stuff, and now it just feels weird that we know so much about it. I was like, I'm glad to hear, like, it doesn't seem like, you know, nothing further came out about the abuse or anything that he did. So like, I'm happy that there wasn't another revelation after all the Ryan stuff, but now it just seems like I almost want to just step away from it. And again, I'm pretty happy that we didn't talk about it back in February.
Well, I don't think we could have.
Well, it wouldn't have been. I mean, we could have brought it up, and again, we would have just been speculating. There wouldn't have been much to really say, but yeah, it just seems. I feel good about it. I don't feel like regretful that we should have said something, because it's not like, you know, like I said, it's not like the Ryan thing where all of a sudden all the evidence started coming out and it was pretty clear something had happened. But yeah, I think that's. I don't know if you have any like last thoughts on that whole situation. We have a couple more like small things to talk about, but
no, I mean, like, I feel like I've been in Trevor's shoes, not that bad. Like, I've been so miserable in a relationship. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start doing other things and trying to do my own thing, and then that blows up in your face, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. You just feel trapped. Eventually, you just feel trapped. And you're like, I get the fuck out of here.
And inevitably what happens is that since you're not really into it, you do things that are kind of shitty and not really boyfriend like, because you're kind of checked out mentally. So you do things that are are seen as bad. I'm not saying abusive, but you do things that are like kind of shitty. And it's like, well, he was cold to me, and then he doesn't want to hang out with me, and he doesn't want to do this, and it's like
right.
You do get to that point just because you're one step out the door already. So it's like, yeah, then it becomes this, where it's just, no, you actually did this, you actually said that, no, why are you acting this way? It's like, I'm just done. It's like, I need to get out of this.
Over it.
I feel like I've seen enough, because I think the biggest thing is that it was two incompatible people were together, and I've seen that, like, man, I don't know how many times in my life I've seen two people together that's like, why are you two still married, or why are you two still together? It's like, all you do is fight with each other all the time. What do you get out of this? And weirdly enough, I used to see it probably the most working retail, because I don't know how many times I'd be working, because working at a hardware store, a lot of older people come in, and there's all the time I'd be like helping someone, and they would just go, never get married. But, okay. I'm like, how about you just find someone you actually like? Is that weird? Is that an odd concept?
Well, maybe that wasn't the deal back then.
Well, I mean, like someone like that's 40 or 50. Like, well, at that time I was like my early 20s, so they were like twice my age. So, but still, like someone like they're 40 just tell me never to get married. I was like, maybe just don't marry the first person that like you are with, who will agree to stay with you. Maybe actually have a connection with them. Maybe like being around them. I don't know. Am I insane? Is this weird? I don't know. But yeah, see that quite a bit is just miserable people that are together and they just are fighting the whole time in public. No care for who's watching. So it can cause a lot of problems. So it seems like they're both better off for not being with each other. And I hope if what she's saying is true, obviously we want, like, after the Ryan thing, I think everyone would want to know for sure, or not for sure, but like if I think we would rather know than not know if it is true. But I hope that like this is kind of the end of it, and it's not something that's kind of lingering overhead. Oh, I do want to say one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, but the one thing to really note too is that Trevor said that from the moment that things were put out there, he's been submitting stuff to Rooster Teeth and to HR, and said like, here's everything I have on what's going on. Here's screenshots. Here's this. Like, he's been in contact with the people, like the Human Resources Department and the higher ups or whoever would be involved at Rooster Teeth to say like, this, I have nothing to hide. Here's everything. Right. And they've had that information for a while, but way before this, like, everything with Ryan happened, they've been aware of it. It's been like looked at, I guess, investigated. And everybody that I've seen from Rooster Teeth to Achievement Hunter has replied to his statement and with a positive message and saying like, I know you've been going through this for a while, and stuff like that. So it seems like everyone that's close to him is been in support of him and has been for a while, because it's just been a thing that's been lingering overhead. Like I said, I found out about it in February, and I think the original, or the statement that I saw was like in December. It could have been before that, but it's been a long-term thing. So it seems like everyone around him too is supporting him as well. So this isn't like just a statement he made and it's been like almost in vain, not in vain, but like it's like if a tree falls in the woods, does anyone hear it? It's like he's not just on his own, isolated in this. Everyone's been on his side, and a lot of people who, even people who I've seen people in the tweets saying like, when she put that out, I really turned against you and stuff like that. But after reading all this, especially the part where like the things that she was saying about people in the texts, I definitely can't support her anymore or something. Like, there was a lot of people that were giving really positive messages. So
right,
it's definitely been it's good that they both addressed these things. I think they kind of had to, given what's happening with Ryan, because they're really trying. I think they want to build trust again, because there's a lot of people who feel like they can't trust anyone that's there. We talked about it. I don't feel that way, but I know people very much feel that way, and I get it.
I mean, why would like an early, I don't know, And I guess anybody doesn't have to be a woman. I was like, why would the women feel safe? But I guess it doesn't have to be just a woman. It could be anybody. It's like, well, you guys are scum, so we're out.
Yeah, or do you feel like if this person who was so or appeared to be so wholesome and like the family man, it was like almost innocent in a way that he came across on camera, watched him for years, looked up to him, all that kind of stuff. If he could be, it's like trust issues. It's just like, how do I know you're not? It's like I know as much about him as I know about you. So how do I know you're not? So it's like I think it's good that they release these things, and I think they did because they wanted to show like we don't have it, like this surprised us just the way it surprised you. We don't have anything to hide, so when things come up here, it's really the complete opposite of the Rooster Teeth approach. What it used to be. It used to be just don't talk about it until it goes away, and now it's completely flipped where it's addressed head on. At least for now. Maybe who knows in another year or so, but
right.
But yeah, I think that's I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to end on, but
what's next on the old list?
Well, just a couple quick things, just a few small things. Like Gavin released a slow-mo video with Dr. Fauci, which is a weird kind of connection. I believe
it's his sneezing one.
I believe so. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the I think it was a clip like on Twitter or something of how gross it looked, but I didn't see the whole video yet. But yeah, that came out this week, and the other thing was that Jeremy moved back to New England.
I saw that.
Massachusetts, and again, read that headline, got really scared. I was like, oh shit, now he's gone. But he talked about it on his stream. Him and Kat moved back to Massachusetts essentially for now, because since Rooster Teeth is doing everything at home, and it doesn't look like they're going to be going back to the office before the end of the year, I think, at least, or until the beginning of next year. I forget what exactly the time frame was. They decided, because I think they said they had some family had like some issues, like I don't know if it's health issues or what, but there was some type of like family stuff. They both have really big families, and so they wanted to be back closer. So if there ever was something that happened, they were there. They didn't have to try to like get a flight, all that stuff. So they were there. So they moved back up to New England for now, and then as soon as Rooster Teeth can go back to the offices, they're moving back to Austin. Right. So it was surprising. I was like, once I saw he moved, it's like, oh shit, like it's all unraveling now.
Right. Why would
Jeff's statement, him moving.
we can get cheap flights to Mass.
We went right by there whenever we went to Maine, like 2 years ago almost. But yeah, so those were the two things. There was an announcement, but I forgot to pull it up. But there was an announcement that Rooster Teeth added a bunch of people, our different groups and stuff, to kind of the like the Rooster Teeth family, sort of. It's not in the way like Funhouse or Kind of Funny or anything. It's basically it's closer to the Valley, or I think Valley Folk, I think is what I'm pretty sure. It's close to them, where their videos are going up on Rooster Teeth's website as well as on YouTube. And then I guess like people are like like Sugar Pine 7 and stuff. The ones that have ended are going to be put on. I forget what the section of the site was, but it's basically just to further organize. But you can find there's a statement on the Rooster Teeth website where there was like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different groups that will also be uploading their things to the Rooster Teeth site as well as like YouTube or whatever. And one of them was, I don't know if you listened to Black Box Down this week, but it was the True Crime podcast from RTX or the True Crime panel at RTX was what they uploaded for Black Box Down this week because they're on a break. And it was Red Web, so it was Trevor and Alfredo, and then it was Gus and Chris for Black Box Down. And then I forget what the name, it's like, I don't know if it's just like the Cult Podcast or something like that, or Cultist Podcast. I forget what it is, but it was people, like, I think it was 2 people from there who were kind of like the like moderator for the panel a little bit, where like they were the ones that were, I mean, they talked about their own podcast, but they were kind of like leading the questions and everything. But it was that group is now part of, like, they'll have stuff that'll pop up on the site too. So it's not the same as like Funhouse, where like they are like Rooster Teeth like owns them, but it seems like they're going to be like, they're kind of expanding who's like, I don't know, they've been doing that for a while. Like there's different groups that are like posting on the site, and I think Valley Folk was the first one, if I remember right, but I don't know. But other than that, I got nothing. I just have a blown out voice.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to cover, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. We're going to take a breath now. At least now people can see me be exhausted. They can see you in the summertime when it gets super hot in this room, and I'm beet red, just sweating, and I'm like, and Jeremy's doing this thing. I'm just trying to get through it and not die in here. But no, I think that's it, Doug.
I think that's it. That's a good first one.
We're almost at an hour and a half. As far as I can tell, we haven't experienced any kind of technical difficulties. All I've noticed is that the video file is very large already.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, this is huge.
So, I mean, we have some things to work out. Hopefully, this all goes according to plan and nothing gets messed up for YouTube. Like I said, we kind of have a lot of details to iron out, but the hope is that this is what will be happening going forward. Is that along with the audio version of the podcast, it'll be going on YouTube. So someone might be listening audio right now, and we can switch over. Or if you found us on YouTube, then I keep looking at you because I'm used to looking at you. But if you found us on YouTube, as you can tell, this is episode, what is this, 82? Yeah. This is episode 82. We've been doing this for a while, so we have quite a library built up now, and we also do a show every Wednesday called Out in the Grapes, and it's an episode where we talk about literally everything. You will know probably by the time, well, I don't know, maybe you won't know when this actually goes up, but it's possible we'll be doing video podcasts for Out in the Grapes as well. But if you want to, you can finally see our faces, our lovely faces. You can see the beard that I reference and for Doug all the time. And it can finally put some pieces together and have a visual reference for kind of what we have going on. So, I think that's about it. So,
thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's been downloading and listening. We welcome everyone who is new, who has found the show, and we look forward to continue to grow the podcast. I think we're gonna hit it. But it looks like we're going to have our first month where we actually break 1,000 downloads for the month, which is we've been close to it before. Well, I guess because the site we host on kind of like it measures that in two different ways. So it does go month by month. So like October 1st, October 31st, but it also just does the previous 30 days. So in terms of going from month day 1 to month day 30 or whatever, we haven't been as close as we have been for like the previous 30 days, kind of like rolling gauge of the podcast. So we've been like somewhat close to that before, but never really within like the shot of getting it. We're still probably a couple hundred away, and then this month it looks like we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna do it, but I hope we do, because that's a big milestone for us to cross. I remember it wasn't that long ago when we talked about crossing 100 downloads in 1 week, and that's a thing of the past for us now. That happens, that's no longer our kind of milestone. We have a new milestone we can shoot for, which is 1,000 in a month. So I think that's it. Hopefully, this YouTube helps us grow this even more, but we shall find out. So I even wore my Achievement Hunter, my shirt for this. It's covered in dog hair. I don't know if that shows up, but I know.
You can't see anything besides heave.
Looking at me. Heave. I didn't even notice. Oh, wrong way. There it is. But yeah, that's it. So we look forward to, I guess, you seeing us next week. And check back on Wednesday for Out in the Grapes. So, Doug, do you have an outro for us for our video podcast? I put you on the spot every time.
Go with the bass.
Go with the bass. Oh, yo, Doug gets his solo. This is Doug's solo. Appreciate Doug's solo.